Welcome to A PsychoDelicious Conversation on mental health issues and trends from two local mental health professionals in the greater Lansing area. I'm Michael Stratton, LMSW.
And I'm Morgan Bowen, DNP, PMHNP, and we're here to provide you with a deep dive into the human experience of consciousness and beyond. Our aim is to be educational and entertaining, so just kick back and open your ears and your minds.
Morning or good afternoon or good evening or good night, wherever you are. I'm Mike
Good
Stratton.
something.
I'm Michael Stratton.
And I'm
Mike
Morgan
Stratton.
Bowen.
I'm the one that didn't press the button in the beginning. So
You're the guy.
You're
And
fired.
Dedalian is our
Dedalian.
producer.
I'm learning how to do my job.
He's doing it. He's doing
How
his
long
job.
have you done this job?
This one particularly, I guess since 2020, but I mean, I've been here at WLNZ since 99. We were just kind of talking a
We
little
were
bit
just
about the
talking
old
about it.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah, upstairs.
Back when we were in a different
Used to be in student,
building.
it was student services back then.
Yeah, second floor. Were you? You were never up there.
I was not. When I started here, we were definitely in the TLC building, the Tender Loving Care building, otherwise known as the Technology and Learning Center. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Yeah. So should we do the show?
We should.
I think we should. And Morgan's going to start us off.
I am.
I set him up. I said, you pick the topic, and
You did.
Look
And I
what
appreciate that. But so today we're going to talk about media and mental health. That's kind of the general topic. And this will be a two-part episode. So we'll introduce the ideas and then maybe talk about treatment-related things in the next episode.
cool.
So we'll start. I was thinking maybe we should talk about our own media consumption. So I guess the reason that I chose this topic is it comes up a lot in when I'm working with individuals and their patterns of media consumption and how that is part of their life, as well as perhaps part of what's going on with distress, anxiety, depression. So it's a pretty big deal these days.
Yeah, I would agree with that. People talk about how much news to watch, how overwhelmed they feel by the news. The news has been, well, you look at what's been, here are the headlines for this week. Marines go to LA to quell demonstrations against ICE agents. There's a war that's breaking out between Israel and Iraq. Iran. Yeah, we want to get that right. And God, what else? I mean, there's like, the Supreme Court weighs in on something. I mean, there's something every single
There is,
day.
and there's a lot. And so what do you pay attention to? Do you pay attention to any of it? Do you just kind of turn it off? Do you spend all of your time interfacing with media in some sort of way? What is the balance in your life? And this is an actual question, Mike. What is the balance?
Well, I'll
for
tell
you?
you what. So the way I used to consume media in my younger days is that we got two newspapers. We got a morning paper and an afternoon paper. And I would sit down with the paper in the morning and I'd read the paper. And maybe at night, I'd watch a half-hour news program because that's all there was. And after the Iran hostage thing, that's when Koppel, right? Ted Koppel
Ted Couple.
Ted Koppel. He used to do a late night kind of review of this is, it's day 14 of the hostage crisis.
Oh, right.
And that was the beginning of like a news cycle that went into the evening. And then all of a sudden there was CNN. And so it was on, all the time. But I didn't pay much attention to it then. But
that's interesting to reflect on the history of that.
yeah, so
Watergate.
newspapers went away.
I wasn't alive during Watergate, but when I look at popular media, movies, people were glued to the live congressional hearings. There were congressional hearings.
Kathy went to them. She heard John Mitchell do his testimony. So she was actually in the room with
Who was John Mitchell?
John Mitchell. He was the attorney general for Richard Nixon. And he went to jail, I believe, back in the days when people went to jail for doing bad things.
Yep.
But the other thing that is notable to me is that during COVID, it was a miserable period of time, and I was just watching like way way too much television, way too much quote unquote news.
There wasn't much else to do, arguably. But.
Well, I would say that, I've always been kind of aware of what's going on in the news, but that was the point where I became more consumed with it was 2020, when I found myself wanting to know what was going on, basically with the pandemic. And ever since then, it's kind of been a daily part of my life where I at least will watch, if nothing else, although I watch it on YouTube because it fits into my schedule, but I'll watch the news on there and kind of catch up with it. And I do it pretty much every single morning. And I never did that before 2020. That was never a thing.
So you
for
still
me.
do that currently? And
I
I'm
do.
asking because I think we should talk about our own media patterns, our own media diets.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about people having too much, and it's also interesting when you watch people how they react to news, because I don't really have a lot of reaction to it. A lot of the times I go, okay, I just take it in, and there might be something in my head where I go, well, that is not a good thing, or that is a good thing. But then if my girlfriend's watching with me, she's very vocal and she's yelling at the screen, and bless her, she's passionate. And I always feel like maybe I'm just not passionate enough. Well, but I just react differently.
The patterns and the reactions and the just general relationship between an individual and media is very individual. It's varied, for a number of reasons. But so do you only look at things in the morning, or will you look at things throughout the day? And how much time do you spend in the morning?
Well, the definition in news has really kind of expanded these days.
Well, let's expand the discussion to just general media. So screen time on your phone, or so there's news, but there's also social media, obviously. And
if I had to put a number on it, I would say maybe 30 minutes a day, and that really is just where it's just straight out news. But if you add in various other items that I will watch, when you're talking about, because I am an absolute huge fan of John Oliver.
We watch John Oliver.
But that's principally news, when you look at it. Now, is it skewed? Definitely. Yeah, it is.
It is. I mean, he's a comedian, but he's also a very critical meaning digests a lot of information in the show.
And then there's Seth Meyers. A lot of the times when I'm watching that extra news, it's to get a good laugh too.
Well, what about you, Mike? What's your media patterns, your digestion of media through the day?
I do a fair amount of doom scrolling.
Well, we're going to talk about that. So tell us what is doom scrolling to you? What do you mean
in the
by
morning,
that?
the very first thing I look at is Heather Cox Richardson. So she publishes an article every day, and it's a review of the previous day's news, but it's also placed in a context, a historical context, both American history and also national history. And that's very informative to me. And quite often it's kind of alarming, because she has a read on, the slide into tyranny and fascism, which is what we're experiencing right now. And it's so that piece of it feels like doom scrolling, but it's also not inaccurate. Let me put it that way. So I'll go from there to reading other stuff, reading fiction for the next hour, and listening to music, and doing a little spiritual stuff like that.
Balance out.
Yeah, try to balance it out a little bit. Sometimes on the way into work, I'll listen to music. Sometimes I'll turn in and listen to news, depending on what's going on and how, oh my gosh, a war just started. I'll probably listen to more news right now because of what's going on in the Middle East.
I would agree with that. Yeah, sometimes my consumption will go up when there's a particular event happening.
Like a spike with something.
Yeah.
Real spike.
That's worthy. I wake up in the morning. I don't look at my phone right away. I do have some coffee and kind of putz around for maybe a half an hour. But when I start to do the getting ready process, shower, shave, I do put on podcasts. So I listen to The Daily, which is a New York Times, half an hour dive into some news topic that's happening. Like today discussed the Iranian situation. And also headlines. So it's a kind of synopsis of the major headlines of that day.
Yeah.
So usually 40 minutes of listening, and then I will throughout the day on breaks look at my phone and check in with usually a news app or some type of media source. I like Substack. That's a recent one for me.
Yeah.
If you guys use Substack, it's a kind of an alternative, I would say, to Facebook. It's definitely very news oriented, so less of the social part, but I've come to like that. So I've tried to curate select news sources as well as apps that present things in a way that's a little bit more information heavy and less social media heavy. Tried to move away from social media.
When you mentioned podcasting, I have a question for you, Didelian. You make podcasts all day long.
Mhm.
Do you listen to podcasts other than what you produce here?
I can't say that I'm a huge consumer, and a lot of it because of what you just said.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. It kind of is. My day's done. It's not really an entertainment form for me.
Yeah.
Generally, music or
Yeah.
if I'm gonna sit down, TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you think your media consumption is nourishing? It provides positive things for you, or toxic, or a balance?
That's a good question. I don't tend to have very animated reactions. So I don't really know that it affects me that much, other than, there's a lot of depressing stuff out there, and I don't, like, you guys sound like you seek it out a little bit more than I do.
What?
Whereas I'm like,
We don't have enough drama.
I'll agree with Mike in the fact that occasionally I've been known, if there's something going on, I might turn on the radio, listen a little bit. But for the most part, I look at it as, this is my news snapshot. And the unfortunate part is I really do only get my news from one source. And that's not really a good thing to do, in my opinion. I think you should get it from different sources, different perspectives. And unfortunately, I tend to keep it to that 30 minutes, and then I'm done for the day.
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. In fact, I think that might be a very healthy thing.
Keeping myself informed is all I'm doing.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike?
I will. I'll listen to. What was the question again?
Do you feel like your relationship with media is nourishing? It provides value and benefit and positive things to your life, or do you feel like it's more of a negative? Toxic?
In response to that, I will say yes. Yes.
I think it's both for me. So I will find myself at times when things are really at a peak, I'll start to consume more of it, and that's not good for my health. And I will, a number of my clients will talk about this, and we'll talk about limiting it. We've got a colleague, for instance, who, she talks about the only place she gets her news is NPR and BBC. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Why don't I do that? Because since television and media, it's all about the clicks. It's all about how many eyes are set on that. They're trying to sell advertising. And the way they do it is to get you angry or scared. Those are the main emotional states, and they will feed you whatever it is that they need to feed you to keep you looking at it. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a vested interest on the media companies for the clicks. I mean, so the more sensational,
they're good at it.
They are good at it, and so that's the psyche, the mind aspect of how the media or how communications or marketing is able to tap into some of the underlying brain chemistry of what happens when people interface with media, also social media. So TikTok, Reels, Instagram,
Now,
Threads.
do you do TikTok?
I did for a long time. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
It's been probably a year since I have TikTok.
Yeah.
Because
I've never done it.
It was really during the pandemic. I was like, what is this TikTok thing?
And I guess my question is how do you summarize news on TikTok?
Well, so there is a news component to it, but it's much more social media. So this introduced kind of a concept of more brain rot types of things. So there's a theory or an idea, and I guess it's debatable whether or not news is building its information. It's you're digesting, you're critically thinking, hopefully. Whereas something like TikTok is more mindless, scrolling. Videos are very short, 20 seconds, 40 seconds, up to a minute. And the idea is just to kind of sit there and literally scroll through videos that you find amusing. So dance videos, funny things, people falling, things that are literally brain candy.
Right.
And so I'm talking about my own experience. I would watch them 2 hours. I would get home from work, or it would be in the evening, and 2 hours easily could go by. And you just get into this trance of scrolling and sending them to people and laughing. And something takes over. And at a certain point I said, this is not adding anything to my life.
Do you know what's interesting is even though my news consumption probably went up during 2020, my social media dropped. And I'm rarely on Facebook anymore. I used to be on Facebook quite a bit. Instagram, I don't really do that much.
Well, it's because we're old.
But it's exactly what you said. I had a day where I was sitting there and I was like kind of scrolling through my news feed, and I just had this moment where I went, what am I doing? I'm like, I don't have any interest in anything that I'm looking at. Not really. I mean, I want to know about my friends. That's about it. But most of the stuff, I'm just like, this is kind of dumb. And I just stopped. I stopped after that. I stopped.
Well, you avoided the hook. I mean, once it kind of gets into.
I had it. I mean, because I was doing Facebook for quite a while. In fact, I was one of the first people I knew on Facebook back in the day.
Were you on MySpace?
I was not.
You were not.
I did not do that.
I was. I loved MySpace. I was big.
I heard it was pretty cool.
It was very cool, and it was Facebook was very passé. No, the only people who used Facebook at that time were really college kids and like Ivy League college kids. So MySpace was for the
old
masses.
folks use it.
Yeah, and it was like old people and kind of dorky people use it.
What's your social media consumption like?
I gotta check Facebook right now.
Well, you and I are friends. Everybody knows that, and we're friends on Facebook. And you're fairly active on Facebook.
I am. I plugged my radio show, a Group Supreme, which is on a different station. It's a jazz radio show. I do that on a weekly basis. Once every other month, I'll plug my book, The Little Green Book, which continues to sell.
Available on Amazon.com.
I've plugged PscyhoDelicious Conversation once, I think, so far, only once. And every now and then I'll see an article that like catches me on fire, and I'll pin that. I'll do that occasionally. But one thing I do is that I take a walk, like probably 4 times a week. I walk around downtown. And I just take pictures of things that are interesting to me, and it's funny because that is like one of the most popular things I do.
I could see that.
Yeah, people say, I missed your today's walk, So it's just like I just post pictures of just different things that look interesting to me or beautiful, or I don't know. It's
kind of interesting. You said the PscyhoDelicious conversation and you didn't get stopped. How long ago was that?
I didn't get stopped.
Yeah. So basically it was like, I want to say last year I kept trying to post stuff, and Facebook kept coming at me and saying that this violates our policy, blah, 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 because they felt like it was advertising. Anytime I was hosting a show or something like that, that was the only thing I was doing on Facebook was work related stuff. And I just kept getting stopped. And so finally I was just like, I'm just not going to do this anymore. This is dumb.
That's interesting. Well, I've had a couple of, I don't know if it's warnings or something just recently, very recently.
Similar?
Say, if you want to, do you want to keep this as a public profile, or do you want it to be a business profile?
Yeah.
And so I think it's because I've plugged different things like that. And so it's like, So, I mean, you can create a number of different profiles. We could have a PscyhoDelicious Conversation Facebook page. If you want to do that. I thought about doing that at some point. But when I do that, I walk around and I listen to podcasts. Almost always I'm either talking to someone through my earphones, and just having conversations. I did that during COVID. I went through my whole book, all my contacts. Did I ever talk to you during that time?
I don't think so.
I talked to all kinds of people, people from high school, from people I'd worked with years and years and years ago, distant relatives. It was really interesting to do. It's like, well, I've got all these names in here, and nobody's seeing anybody, so I'll just start talking to
That
people.
sounds really cool.
It was cool.
That was a good
cool.
move.
And also very healthy.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about media impacting your mental health, or maybe mental health in general?
I can tell. Well, okay, how do I put this? I think that there's something going on. This is going to sound crazy, maybe. I think there's something going on that we don't fully see. That we don't see
I agree.
the forest for the trees. We're in the middle of something which is a convergence of social media, and AI is going to escalate it to an nth degree, and some big shifts in the way our government has been run, and that corporations are people and money is speech, and all of a sudden you can buy elections, and all kinds of things have shifted a lot. And then the bifurcation of the media, that you've got right-wing radio and you've got left-wing radio, and never the twain should meet. I mean, every now and then Pete Buttigieg goes on Fox News. Yeah, it's strange. It's really
information
strange.
Polarization.
Absolutely.
I think
what do they call it? Information. There's a word for it when you're just hearing the same thing over
Well,
and over.
your own silo. Yeah. Reinforcement of your own ideas, or that, and the silo idea. After the last election, it was like, oh my gosh, well, I had no idea. Well, it's because I don't listen to the other side.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
It's like, turns out a lot of people were listening to the other side.
Well, do you think it's a problem that you don't listen to the other side? I mean, that you're not exposed to the duality, or ideally the plethora of viewpoints that are out there? Echo chamber.
Well,
it just came to me. That's the echo chamber.
One thing that a lot of the media that I pay attention to, what they do is that they do pay attention to right-wing radio, and so they'll say, here's the talking points, this is what we're hearing from them.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's an
I
interesting
feel like I
thing.
get that.
Because Heather Cox Richardson, as an example, and AI, I mean, it will digest the information for you or for the consumer, because there's too much to pay attention to. I myself cannot, monitor 5,000 data feeds of information coming from all different places. But there are people that do, and Heather Cox Richardson does a great job with digesting a lot of information, has a huge amount of knowledge about she's got a PhD, she's a history professor, and so her lens is through history, just like John Oliver's lens is comedy and more kind of current events and critical thinking. So and that's the kind of things that I consume, but sometimes I do get a bit concerned maybe that I'm not having as much of a meaningful dialogue with other folks with different viewpoints. This is kind of a different issue than media, but it's certainly related to
it is and it isn't. I mean, that's kind of the polarization thing. It's really hard to find an outlet really that is just in the center,
really
which is what news is supposed to be.
Yeah, at a certain
So I had a friend who this is the way he put it. He said that, throughout evolution, for years and years and years, our bodies were designed in a way that we would capture any fat that we ate, anything that we could convert to fat, because we were always on the verge of starving to death. And then all of a sudden, food became plentiful. And now it's like, oh, how do I take this weight off? Or how do I keep it? Yeah. But he thinks the same thing is true of information. That, hundreds of years ago, you knew maybe 10 people, and news came very rarely, and you had lots of time to sort it out and all that kind of stuff. And now we are flooded with news.
Absolutely.
We have way too much, or not too much, but more than we can filter ourselves, and it gets
so I was reading, and I talk to my clients a lot about this, because a lot of my clients will come to me and they're interested in attention deficit disorder as a diagnosis. They have difficulty paying attention to things for longer than 20 seconds or however it may be. It's a short period of time. It's hard for that. They can absolutely almost impossible to read something like a book or a chapter. And so in my brain, I'm thinking, is there something inherent to the brain chemistry here? The person has a neurodevelopmental disorder. They were born with it. The regulation of their attention, which is, a brain function, is pathologically problematic. Or is it that they have not exercised their brain to the point where they're able to sit with information or sit with a topic or really anything for longer than, 20, 40, whatever seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm increasingly believing or beginning, interested in the relationship that people have with information through social media, particularly our young folks, and what that's doing to brain, to basically training of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very difficult thing to tease out using the context of our current understanding of, not necessarily our current understanding of attention, but our current kind of diagnostic tools and things that we have. The speed of the change that has happened has not been mirrored in, I think, in our medicine, in our psychiatry, in our training. And so that's why, it's very interesting. And I think a big problem.
There's a book I have that, and I'm blocking on the title of the book, but it has a quiz in there about whether or not you have attention deficit disorder. And when I go through it with somebody, I say, well, let's take a look. And we'll go through it and check different things. And I'm always more ADD than the client is.
Well, in the next episode, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the pathology or into the psychiatric and psychological aspects.
A PsychoDelicious Conversation is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is no substitute for therapy and should not be treated as such. If you feel a need for real therapy, you should consult your local provider, Google therapy or therapists in your area, check with community mental health, or a suicide hotline if you are feeling suicidal.
Mike and Morgan welcome your questions, feedback, or dilemmas. Feel free to send us an email at apscyhodeliciousconversation@gmail.com. That is a psycho